"Can I have that snack?" the girl said, hunger in her eyes. The millionaire, disguised as a beggar, listened in silence. In that instant, something in his heart changed forever. A simple meeting, but capable of transforming two lives. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air of the Delicia, a traditional establishment located in the heart of the capital. Marco Allen watched the movement of the place attentively through the opaque reflection of the window, fogged by the dew falling outside. Dressed in shabby clothes and with a beard that had been growing for several days, no one could have imagined that this unkempt-looking man was, in fact, the CEO of one of the largest real estate companies in the country. It had been exactly 3 weeks since Marco had begun his social experiment. Tired of endless meetings with shareholders who only cared about profits and dividends, he decided to delve into the other extreme of social reality. He wanted to truly understand the needs of people living on the margins of society. To do so, he temporarily abandoned his penthouse and began living as a homeless person, disguised among those who struggled daily to survive. The doorbell rang softly, announcing the arrival of another customer. Marco looked up from his coffee cup and saw a small figure timidly entering the establishment. It was a girl who couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, wearing a blue coat that was clearly too big for her. Her black hair was tied back in 2 messy braids, and her large, expressive eyes held a mixture of hope and apprehension. The little girl approached the counter with hesitant steps, her small hands gripping the marble edge. The attendant, a middle-aged woman named Donna Carla, leaned in to hear her better. "Can I get that snack?" The girl's voice was soft as a whisper, but filled with an urgency that belied her age. "My brother is sick at home, and we haven't eaten since yesterday." Donna Carla adjusted her apron, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. Her kind face contorted into an expression of genuine concern. "Oh dear, I'm sorry, but I can't give you food without payment. The owner—" Marco felt something stir inside his chest. During his 3 weeks living on the streets, he had witnessed countless scenes of helplessness, but there was something different about this girl. Maybe it was the dignity with which she carried herself, even in the midst of adversity, or maybe it was her genuine concern for her sick brother. Without thinking twice, he got up from his desk and walked to the counter. His tall body cast a shadow over the girl's small figure, who turned around in fright when she noticed his presence. For a moment, Marco saw a flash of fear in her eyes, something that broke his heart. How many times must that child have faced rejection or hostility? "I'll pay for lunch for you and your brother," he said, softening his voice and offering a gentle smile. The girl's eyes widened, surprised by the unexpected gesture. Are you sure?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. Marco nodded, turning to Donna Carla. "Please prepare 2 delicious snacks, and also add 2 banana and oat smoothies." As the waitress prepared the order, Marco observed the girl, who was now looking at him with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. There was a singular strength in that child, something that went beyond her apparent fragility. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sophia," she replied, tucking a strand of hair that had escaped from one of her braids. "That's a really pretty name, Sophia. It suits you." Marco smiled again, noticing how her eyes lit up at the compliment. "You know, Sophia, when you receive help from someone, it's important to remember one thing." "What?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "When you can help someone else too. Sometimes a small gesture can make a big difference in someone's life." Sophia nodded solemnly, as if she was making a sacred promise. "I will help, yes. When I grow up, I want to help everyone in need, just like you are helping me now." Donna Carla returned with a bag containing snacks and vitamins. Sophia took the bag carefully, as if she were carrying a precious treasure. Before leaving, she turned to Marco one last time. "Thank you, young man. May God bless you." Marco watched as she hurried out of the diner, her oversized blue coat flapping with her quick steps. Something about that encounter had struck a chord with him. In his 3 weeks living on the streets, he had seen much suffering, but he had also witnessed countless acts of kindness among those who had little to share. That night, lying on his makeshift mattress in a downtown hostel, Marco couldn't get Sofia out of his mind. The image of the girl carrying the bag of snacks like it was a treasure remained vivid in his mind. There was something familiar in her eyes, something that reminded him of himself as a child, before the empire his father had built had transformed him into the man he was today. The next day, going against his usual routine of moving to another area so as not to be recognized, Marco decided to stay close to the diner. Sitting on a bench in the square in front, he carefully observed each person who passed by, hoping to recognize their oversized blue coat or their disheveled braids. It was Donna Carla who, during her lunch break, provided the first clue. "That girl from yesterday," she commented, sitting next to Marco with a small plate. "I've seen her a few times around here. She lives in one of those abandoned buildings on Flower Street." Marco felt his heart sink. The Street of Flowers was precisely where his developer, Alen Empreendimentos, had purchased several old properties for a revitalization project that had been stalled for years due to legal disputes. The irony of the situation did not escape him. Determined to find Sofia, Marco began mapping out the area. With the experience he had gained from his weeks on the streets, he knew how to approach people without arousing suspicion. He discovered that the building in question was known as the Pink Palace, a 5-story building with a peeling facade that had once been painted pink. It was a candy vendor who finally gave him the most accurate information. "The girl with the braids. She lives on the 3rd floor with her mother and her sick little brother. Her mother, Donna Clara, is a fighter. She works as a cleaner when she can, but ever since the boy got sick, it's been hard." Marco spent the next few days discreetly observing the building. He saw when Sofia left in the morning, always wearing the same blue coat, to get water at a nearby gas station. He watched as Donna Clara, a young woman with dark circles under her eyes, hurried down to another day of work, leaving her children in the care of a neighbor. What impressed Marco most was the dignity with which that small family faced their difficulties. Even though they lived in precarious conditions, Sofia was always clean, with her braids, although disheveled, carefully done. Her coat, although too big, was always buttoned up and clean. One afternoon, Marco witnessed something that touched him deeply. Sofia was walking home when she found a stray dog. Without hesitation, she took a piece of bread from her small backpack, which was probably going to be her snack, and offered it to the animal. "When you can, help someone else too," she murmured, repeating the words he had said to her days before. At that moment, Marco made a decision. It was no longer enough to simply observe. It was time to act. As CEO of Alen Empreendimentos, he had the power to do much more than simply buy a snack. However, he knew he had to be careful. Helping that family was not just a matter of money, but of dignity. In his makeshift office at the hostel, he began to develop a plan. The first step would be to ensure adequate medical care for Sofia's brother. Then he would need to find a way to provide decent housing not only for them, but for all the families living in the Pink Palace. As Marco scribbled his ideas in a worn notebook, he realized that Sofia and her family had inadvertently given him something precious, a purpose. After years of focusing solely on numbers and profits, he finally understood that his true mission as an entrepreneur went far beyond financial success. "When you can, help someone else too." The words echoed in his mind, now with a much deeper meaning. Marco smiled, realizing that that little girl with messy braids had become his greatest teacher. The week began with a different kind of activity at the Pink Palace. A white van parked in front of the building, and a full medical team got out. Residents watched curiously through the broken windows as the health professionals, carrying their suitcases, climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Clara, Sofia's mother, was cleaning the house yet again when she received a call from the neighbor who was taking care of her children. "Mrs. Clara, there are some doctors here who want to see Paolo. They say it's a new program from the city government, free home care." What Clara didn't know was that Marco had tapped into his network of medical contacts using an NGO he had been quietly running for years. The medical team, led by Dr. Bianca Sorrell, a renowned pediatrician, had been carefully selected to care for not only Paolo, but also to assess the medical needs of all the residents in the building. Sophia watched everything with her attentive eyes, sitting on the mattress next to her brother. Paolo, aged 4, was more excited than he had been in the last few days, perhaps because of the novelty of the visitors or the effect of the medicine he had already started taking. "You're going to be okay, little brother," Sophia whispered, holding her brother's small hand. "I promised Mommy I'd take care of you, remember?" Dr. Bianca examined Paolo with care and attention. The diagnosis was not as serious as they had feared, pneumonia that, with proper treatment, could be completely cured. The biggest problem had been the lack of access to medicine and basic care. "Sophia, you've been an excellent sister," the doctor praised, noticing how the girl was always close to her brother. "Did you know that you could be a doctor too when you grow up?" Sophia's eyes lit up. "Can I really? But we're poor, doctor." "Yes, you can," Bianca replied with a gentle smile. "There are many scholarship programs. The important thing is to study hard and never give up on your dreams." When Clara arrived home, she found not only the medical team, but also a complete food basket and all the medicines Paolo would need. Her legs shook, and she had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. How is this possible?" she asked, tears streaming down her tired face. "Miss Clara," Dr. Bianca began, "our program is beginning to work here in the region. We will monitor Paolo until he is fully recovered, and we would also like to register your family for other assistance programs." Late that afternoon, after the medical team had left, Sophia surprised everyone. She took out from under her mattress a small notebook where she had drawn her family. She had added a new figure to the drawing, a man with a beard, smiling. "Who is that, daughter?" asked Clara, curious. "It's the guy from the cafeteria, Mom, the one who helped me with the snacks the other day. You know what he told me? That, when we receive help, we need to help others too. I think he was the one who sent the doctors." Clara smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "Sophia, sometimes you say such things. How could a man you once saw at the diner send doctors here?" But Sophia kept her mysterious smile, as if she knew something that the others had not yet noticed. From the third-floor window, she watched the busy street below, searching among the passers-by for that familiar face. What no one knew was that Marco, still in his disguise, was watching the building from across the street. He watched as the medical van drove away and smiled when he noticed Sophia in the window. His plan was just beginning. The next phase would be even more important, ensuring quality education for all the children in the Pink Palace. In his pocket, Marco carried a crumpled piece of paper with notes about schools in the area and educational programs that could be implemented. But there was something else there, something that even he hadn't realized yet. He was becoming emotionally involved in this mission in a way he never imagined possible. The next morning, while the sun was still struggling to break through the typical autumn fog in São Paulo, Sophia walked down the stairs of the Pink Palace with a different glow in her eyes. Paolo was improving quickly with the medication, and his mother had managed to get time off work to take care of him. But that wasn't the only thing that made her heart happy. The night before, after everyone had gone to sleep, Sophia had done something she would keep as a precious secret. She wrote her first letter. With crooked letters and some words written, the way she spoke, she poured out her deepest dreams onto paper. "Dear young man from the cafeteria," the letter began, "I wanted to be a doctor like Dr. Bianca to help people like you helped me. Mum said I need to study a lot, but at my school there is a shortage of teachers and sometimes there is no food." Sophia carefully folded the paper and put it in the pocket of her inseparable blue coat. She didn't know how she would deliver the letter, but something in her heart told her that she would find a way. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Marco finally returned to his penthouse apartment. He needed to briefly reassume his real identity in order to carry out the next phase of his plan. His personal assistant, Raphael, the only one who knew about his social experiment, was waiting for him with a briefcase full of documents. "Mr. Allen, during your absence, I carried out the survey you requested on the schools in the Palacio Rosa region, Raphael said. The situation is more complex than we imagined. Marco looked over the reports as he shaved, removing the characterization he had used for the past few weeks. The numbers were disheartening. Only 2 public schools in the area, both with poor infrastructure and high dropout rates. Raphael, schedule a meeting with the Department of Education, Marco ordered, already wearing one of his impeccable suits, and also prepare a renovation project for the building on Rua das Flores. The Pink Palace, sir, but what about the original demolition plan? Change of plans, Marco replied with a smile. Sometimes we need to demolish our prejudices before we can demolish walls. That same morning, Sophia had a surprise when she arrived at her school. A group of people were taking pictures of the building and taking notes. Among them was an elegant lady who introduced herself as Professor Helena, coordinator of an educational project. "Good morning, little one," Helena greeted, noticing the oversized blue coat. "Do you study here?" Sophia nodded, clutching the letter in her pocket. Helena crouched down to the girl's level. "You know, we're planning some changes around here. What do you think the school needs?" Sophia's eyes lit up. "A library, with lots of medical books, and also a covered court, because when it rains we can't play, and food every day." Helena smiled, surprised by the little girl's eloquence. "Medicine? Do you want to be a doctor?" "Yes, I do, just like Dr. Bianca, to help people," Sophia replied with conviction. What Sophia didn't know was that Helena had been personally hired by Marco to coordinate a complete restructuring of not only that school, but of the entire educational system in the region. The project, which would be announced in the coming weeks, would include not only physical renovations but also teacher training programs and extracurricular activities. At the end of the day, when Sophia was returning home, she noticed something different in the cafeteria where it all began. Donna Carla was putting up a sign in the window, "Solidarity Coffee Program, a meal for a dream." The sign explained that any child in the region could exchange a drawing or an essay for a full snack. Sophia took the letter out of her pocket, looked at it for a long moment, and then smiled. Maybe, she thought, there was more than one way to make her dreams reach the guy at the diner. After all, as he himself had said, small gestures could make a big difference. What she didn't know yet was that her lovingly written words would be the catalyst for even greater change, not just for her family, but for the entire Pink Palace. Community. The Delisa's Café Solidario program became an instant success. In just 1 week, the walls of the establishment were covered with colorful drawings and letters full of dreams and hopes. Donna Carla, with her characteristic kindness, kept each story with special care in a decorated folder. Among all the letters, there was one that caught my attention. Written in childlike handwriting and with simple words, it told the story of a little girl who wanted to be a doctor. The letter had been left by Sophia on a Monday morning, along with a drawing of what she imagined a hospital to be like, full of colorful windows and a large garden in front. "Dear young man from the cafeteria," the letter said, "I don't know your name, but I know you have a good heart. After you helped me, many good things started to happen. My brother Paolo is getting better, and now doctors come to see him. The school is also different. People are doing renovations, and teacher Helena said we're going to have a library." Marco, who was still following his routine of visiting the diner in his disguise, found the letter on a particularly busy afternoon. As he read Sophia's words, he felt his eyes well up. It was the first time he had received such direct and innocent feedback about his actions. That same afternoon, in his office at Allen Empreendimentos, now dressed in his impeccable suit, Marco gathered his team of directors. On the agenda was a revolutionary proposal, the creation of the New Dreams Foundation, a non-profit organization that would be financed with part of the developers' profits. "Gentlemen," he began, "in recent years, we have focused exclusively on building luxury buildings. It is time for us to build something more important: opportunity." The presentation that followed left everyone surprised. Marco proposed a complete urban revitalization program that would begin at the Pink Palace and extend throughout the region. The difference: the current residents would not be removed, but rather integrated into the transformation process. "We don't just want to renovate buildings," Marco explained. "We want to renovate lives. Every family will receive not only a decent apartment, but also opportunities for education and work." Meanwhile, in the Pink Palace, Clara was organizing a small celebration. Paolo had been discharged from the hospital, having completely recovered from pneumonia. The neighbors gathered in the small apartment, each bringing something to share: a simple cake, a powdered juice, sincere smiles. Sophia sat on the windowsill watching with her keen eyes. Her sketchbook was open on her lap, and she was scribbling what looked like a blueprint. On the page was a sketch of a large building with hanging gardens and a sign that said, "Hospital of Dreams." "What are you drawing, daughter?" Clara asked, approaching with a slice of cake. "It's the hospital where I'll work when I'm a doctor, Mummy," Sophia replied with conviction. "It'll be a place where no one will have to pay to be treated, and all the children will get a lollipop after their appointment." Clara smiled, but her eyes showed concern. How could she explain to a child that some dreams were too difficult? Before she could say anything, they were interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Donna Zara, the neighbor on the 4th floor, came into the apartment out of breath, holding a newspaper. "Clara, Sophia, you have to see this. It was in the paper that the entire building is going to be renovated, and they say that no one will have to leave here." The news spread quickly through all the floors of the Pink Palace. Groups formed on the stairs and corridors discussing the possibilities. Some were suspicious, others hopeful, but all were curious about who was behind this unexpected change. Sophia, still with her notebook on her lap, smiled discreetly. In her childish but extraordinarily intuitive mind, the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. She picked up her pencil and began to draw another figure for her hospital project. A bearded man, smiling, very similar to the guy from the cafeteria. The following weeks brought a different energy to the Pink Palace. Architects and engineers walked around the building, taking measurements and talking to residents. But what was most striking was the way they conducted their work. Instead of simply dictating changes, they listened to the needs and suggestions of each family. During one of these visits, Sophia met a young architect carrying a folder full of colorful drawings. Curious as always, she approached while the professional explained some details of the project to other residents. "Do you want to see the drawings?" the architect asked, noticing the girl's interest. Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "My name is Miriam," the architect introduced herself, opening her briefcase. "And these are the plans for the new apartments. Look, each one will have large windows to let in plenty of light, and we're going to create a community garden on the roof." Sophia's eyes lit up as she saw the illustrations. "Will there be a library too?" she asked, remembering her dream of studying medicine. Miriam smiled. "Yes, we will have a community library on the ground floor. In fact, the whole project is designed to be a space for learning and socializing." What Sophia didn't know was that Miriam had received specific instructions from Marco to incorporate educational elements into every aspect of the project. The library would not be just a space with books, but a complete study center with computers and rooms for tutoring. Meanwhile, at Delicia, a similar transformation was underway. Donna Carla had been surprised with a proposal to expand the Solidarity coffee program. Now, in addition to snacks, the program would also offer school supplies in exchange for good grades and school attendance. "It's as if someone is weaving a safety net around us," Clara said over coffee with her neighbors. "First the doctors, then the school renovation, now the building. Mom, it can't be a coincidence." Sophia, who was playing with Paolo in the corner of the room, looked up from her latest drawing. She had started to make an illustrated journal, documenting all the changes she was witnessing. On one of the pages, she had drawn a spider web, but instead of insects, the web connected hearts. "Mommy," she called suddenly, "remember the guy at the cafeteria? The one who gave me the snacks?" Clara nodded, curious about where the conversation was going. "He told me that when we receive help, we need to help others too. I think there are more people thinking like him." Sophia's words prompted a moment of reflection among the women. It was true. Little by little, the Pink Palace community was transforming not only physically, but also spiritually. Neighbors who had barely greeted each other were now meeting to discuss improvements. People who had previously felt invisible were beginning to dream of possibilities. The next morning, Marco, still in his disguise, watched the movement in the building from afar. He saw a group of residents get together to start a makeshift vegetable garden without waiting for the official renovation. He noticed how the children, including Sofia and Paolo, helped by carrying small pots and watering cans. It was at that moment that he had an idea. The New Dreams Foundation would not only be an initiative of Allen Empreendimentos, but a project that would come from the community itself. The residents would not only be beneficiaries, but protagonists of the transformation. He picked up his worn notebook and began to make notes. The project would need community leaders, people who knew the real needs of the place. And he already knew exactly who would be perfect for this role. Clara, Sofia's mother, with her quiet strength and her ability to bring people together. The news arrived on a sunny Tuesday. The New Dreams Foundation was looking for community representatives to form a board of directors. The buzz quickly spread through the corridors of the Pink Palace, and soon an impromptu meeting was formed on the ground floor of the building. "We need someone who really understands our needs," argued Mr. Jonas, the retiree on the second floor. "Someone who has lived through our hardships." It was Sofia who, without any shyness, raised her hand in the middle of the meeting. My mother could do that." All eyes turned to Clara, who was sewing a patch onto Paolo's school uniform in the corner of the room. She blushed instantly, but before she could protest, a wave of support arose among the villagers. "It's true," exclaimed Donna Zara. "Clara always helps everyone here. Remember when she organized that group to fix the water tank?" And she was the one who had the idea of creating a shift among the mothers to take care of the children, while the others work, added another resident. Clara looked at everyone astonished. "But I haven't even finished my studies," she argued, insecure. "Mommy," Sofia approached, holding her mother's hand, "you always say that the important thing is not just to study in books, but also in life. And you have studied a lot in your life." The wisdom contained in little Sofia's words brought out emotional smiles. Clara felt something different growing inside her, a mixture of fear and courage, responsibility and hope. That same night, while helping Sofia with her homework, Clara made her decision. "Daughter, do you really think I should try?" Sofia put down her pencil and hugged her mother. "Do you know what the guy at the cafeteria told me? That small gestures can make a big difference. You already do this every day, you just don't realize it." What none of them knew was that Marco, in his office at Allen Empreendimentos, had already planned everything carefully. Clara's name was at the top of his list of potential community leaders, based on the observations he had made during his time undercover. The next morning, Clara received a call from the foundation. The gentle voice on the other end of the line belonged to Rafael, Marco's assistant, though she didn't know it. "Miss Clara, we would like to invite you for an interview. But don't worry, it's not formal. We just want to talk about your ideas for the community." Meanwhile, at school, Sofia was taking part in a special activity. Teacher Helena had asked each student to write about someone they admired. Without hesitation, Sofia began writing about her mother. "My mom is like a fairy godmother from the Pink Palace," she wrote. "But instead of a magic wand, she uses her heart to make magic. She turns sadness into smiles, problems into solutions, and now she's going to transform our building into an even more special place." Late in the afternoon, when Clara went to pick up Sofia from school, she found teacher Helena waiting for them. "Clara, I need to show you something," said the teacher, handing her Sofia's text. Clara read her daughter's words right there, in the schoolyard, with tears in her eyes. Each word written by Sofia seemed to give her more strength, more certainty, that she was on the right path. "You know, Clara," Helena said, "sometimes we need to see through the eyes of a child to see our true strength." On the way home, mother and daughter were walking hand in hand when they passed the delicious snack bar. Donna Carla called them from the door. "Clara, Sofia, come see this." On the wall of the cafeteria, now transformed into a mural of dreams, there was a new poster, Scholarship Program, New Dreams Foundation, and right below a photo of the Pink Palace with the words, "Where great transformations begin with small gestures." Clara's interview at the New Dreams Foundation was scheduled for a Thursday morning. She had spent the previous night organizing her ideas in an old notebook while Sophia and Paolo slept. Her notes revealed much more than simple suggestions. They were dreams built from lived experience. "We need a place for mothers to leave their children while they work," she wrote. "A community daycare center with people from the building itself working there. That way we can create jobs and take care of each other." On the morning of the interview, Clara dressed in her best outfit, a navy blue skirt and a carefully pressed white blouse. Sophia made sure to style her mother's hair, creating an elaborate braid that she had learned from a tutorial in the school library. "You look beautiful, Mommy," Sophia said proudly. Just like one of those TV executives. The foundation building was imposing, but what impressed Clara most was the warm welcome. Marco's assistant, Raphael, personally led her to a meeting room where other people from the community were already waiting. "Madam Clara," Raphael began, "before we formally begin, I would like everyone to share their visions for the future of the Pink Palace." Clara took a deep breath, and for the first time in her life felt that her words had weight. She began to talk about her ideas: a community daycare center, vocational training courses, a vegetable garden that could supply a popular restaurant. "The most important thing," she concluded, "is that we don't just want to receive help. We want to be part of the solution. Every resident has something to teach, something to contribute." From the other side of a one-way mirror, Marco watched the meeting, now in his business attire. His notes were mixed with memories of the conversations he had had with the residents during his time undercover. That same afternoon, Sophia received a surprise at school. Teacher Helena announced that the library was receiving new books, and among them was a complete collection on basic medicine, suitable for children. "Sophia," Helena called, "I thought you might like to be the first to see these books." The girl's eyes lit up when she saw the colorful covers with illustrations of the human body, cells, and medical instruments. But what really caught her attention was the dedication written on the first page of each book. "For everyone who dreams of helping others, when you can help someone else too." Sophia recognized the phrase immediately. Her heart raced as she leafed through the books, searching for more clues about the mysterious donor. In one of the volumes, she found a small card with the logo of the New Dreams Foundation. During recess, sitting in her favorite spot in the yard, Sophia began putting together the pieces of the puzzle in her notebook. The guy from the cafeteria showed up when they needed him most. Then the doctors came for Paolo. The school started to improve. The building was going to be renovated. The New Dreams Foundation has arrived. The medical books with that special phrase, "I wonder," she muttered to herself, drawing the bearded man in her notebook once more. Next to the drawing, she wrote in her childish handwriting, "Guardian angel or businessman." What Sophia didn't know was that, at that very moment, Marco was making an important decision in his office. It was time to reveal his true identity, but not all at once. It had to be done gradually so as not to break the trust he had built with the community. He picked up his phone and called Raphael. "Prepare a meeting with all the residents of the Pink Palace for next week. It's time to present the Foundation's complete project. And Raphael, especially invite Mrs. Clara and her daughter Sophia. I have an important announcement to make." The school auditorium had been chosen for the grand meeting of the New Dreams Foundation. All week, the Pink Palace community buzzed with speculation about what would be announced. Colorful posters were posted around the neighborhood, announcing a new beginning, community transformation project. Clara, who was now an official member of the Foundation's board of directors, was especially excited. Raphael had confided in her that she would play an important role in the presentation, but the details were being kept secret. "Mommy," Sophia called, watching her mother try on different outfit combinations in front of the small mirror. "Are you nervous?" Clara smiled, adjusting the collar of her blouse for the 10th time. "A little, daughter. It's strange, you know. A few months ago it was just the three of us fighting to survive. Now it seems like the whole world is conspiring in our favor. Sophia sat on the bed, hugging her sketchbook. On the last pages, she had made a sort of illustrated timeline, connecting all the events since that afternoon in the diner. In each drawing, the figure of the bearded man appeared discreetly, like a silent guardian. "Mother," said Sophia after a moment of thought, "do you believe in angels?" "I believe, daughter." "Why?" "I think I met one, only he doesn't have wings, he has a beard." Clara laughed at her daughter's remark, but something in those words touched her heart deeply. Indeed, all the positive changes in their lives seemed to have begun after Sophia's encounter with that kind stranger at the diner. The next morning, a Saturday, the Pink Palace woke up looking different. Volunteers from the foundation arrived early, decorating the building's facade with banners and balloons. A community breakfast was organized on the ground floor, bringing together all the residents. Donna Carla from Delicia had prepared a special table of sweets and savory treats. Among the treats, a cake decorated with the logo of the New Dreams Foundation and the words "When you can, help someone too" stood out. Sophia, upon seeing the phrase on the cake, quickly pulled out her notebook and made another note in her private investigation. Paolo, now completely recovered, was playing with other children in a space that the volunteers had organized with games and activities. "Clara," Raphael called, approaching with a folder in his hands, "can we review your speech for tomorrow?" While her mother and assistant walked away to talk, Sophia took the opportunity to do her own investigation. She discreetly approached Raphael as he was putting some documents away in his briefcase. "Sir," she called in her sweetest voice, "do you know the man from the diner, the one who helps people?" Raphael smiled, clearly surprised by the question. For a moment he seemed to hesitate. "What man, Sophia?" "The one with the beard, who always wears old clothes. He helped me once and told me to help others when I could." "The Ikaos." Assistant straightened his tie, visibly trying to choose the right words. "You know, Sophia, sometimes the most extraordinary people hide behind the simplest appearances, like superheroes in disguise." Sophia's eyes lit up at the comparison. In her notebook, she added another line to her investigation: "Superhero in disguise." That evening, while everyone was getting ready for the big day ahead, Marco was in his office, looking out the window at the illuminated city. On his desk were two suits, one impeccably new and the other purposefully aged and worn. He picked up his phone and typed a message to Raphael. "Tomorrow will be different. I'll start like always, but I'll finish like never before. Prepare everything, as we agreed." In her apartment in the Pink Palace, Sophia couldn't sleep. Sitting by the window, she gazed at the stars as she completed her latest drawing, a double page in her notebook showing the building before and after. In the center of the illustration, like a bridge between the two moments, was the mysterious man. But this time she drew him in two ways, in simple clothes on one side and in a suit on the other. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself. "Tomorrow, I will find out if my guardian angel is really who I think he is." The school auditorium was unrecognizable on that Sunday morning. New curtains framed the windows. Comfortable chairs had replaced the old school desks, and a makeshift stage dominated the front of the room. The nervousness and anticipation were palpable in the air. Clara, wearing a navy blue outfit that Sophia had helped her choose, was mentally replaying her speech. Beside her, Sophia was adjusting the ribbon that held her braids for the 10th time, while she carefully observed each person who entered the auditorium. "Looking for someone special?" Paolo asked, noticing his sister's restlessness. "Maybe," she replied mysteriously, her eyes never leaving the entrance. The auditorium gradually filled up. Residents of the Pink Palace, local merchants, including Donna Carla, school teachers, and several community representatives, took their seats. Raphael circulated among the attendees, checking the last details with his usual efficiency. At 10 o'clock sharp, the lights dimmed slightly, and Raphael took the stage. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "Today is a very special day for our community. Before we present the details of the Pink Palace transformation project, I would like to call on someone who knows your needs intimately. Ms. Clara, please. Clara stood up, her hands shaking slightly. Sophia squeezed her hand one last time, conveying courage. As her mother walked toward the stage, Sophia noticed a slight movement in the back of the auditorium. A familiar figure, wearing shabby clothes and a beard, entered silently and stood near the door. Sophia's heart raced. It was him, the man from the diner. But there was something different about his posture today, something she couldn't quite explain. Clara began her speech with a firm voice. A few months ago, our community began to experience extraordinary changes. It all started with small acts of kindness, which multiplied like waves on a lake. Today, we are here to learn about the next chapter in this story of transformation. As Clara spoke about the community's needs and the residents' dreams, Sophia watched the mysterious man. He listened attentively with a slight smile on his face, occasionally exchanging discreet glances with Raphael. And now, Clara continued, I would like to introduce someone who has been instrumental in this entire process of transformation. Someone who... She was interrupted by Raphael, who came closer and whispered something in her ear. Clara looked surprised for a moment, but then smiled and nodded. Actually, Raphael took the microphone. Before we continue, there is someone who would like to share their own story with you. The man from the diner began walking toward the stage. Sophia held her breath, her research notebook clutched to her chest. She watched as he walked up the steps to the stage with a familiarity that didn't match his plain appearance. Stopping. Beside Clara, he picked up the microphone, and for the first time his voice sounded different, steadier, more articulate. Good morning, everyone. Many of you know me as the man at the diner, the gentleman who sometimes buys coffee and chats about life, but today I need to introduce myself properly. His hands went to his beard, and Sophia, from her seat in the front row, realized that she was about to confirm her suspicions. Her heart was beating so hard that she could barely hold the pencil with which she had documented her entire investigation. The man paused dramatically, his eyes meeting Sophia's for a brief moment. Then, with a gentle smile, he began, My name is Marco Allen, and I have something important to share with all of you. Absolute silence filled the auditorium. All eyes were fixed on Marco, who was now carefully removing his fake beard and wiping away the makeup he had worn for so long. Clara, still beside him on the stage, looked shocked, alternating glances between the man who was revealing himself and her daughter in the front row. Sophia, in turn, smiled. It wasn't a smile of surprise, but of confirmation. She opened her notebook to the page where she had drawn the mysterious man in his two versions, and proudly showed it to Paolo, who was gaping at her side. As I imagined, she whispered to her. Brother, Marco continued his revelation, his voice now carrying the eloquence of a successful businessman, but maintaining the kindness that everyone had come to know. I am the CEO of Allen Emprendimientos, the company that bought these lands a few years ago. But more importantly than that, I am someone who learned a valuable lesson from you, especially from a little teacher. His eyes met Sophia's again, and he smiled. A few months ago, I decided to live on the streets to truly understand the needs of the people. I had planned to stay only for a week, but one encounter changed everything. A brave girl walked into a diner, not asking for something for herself, but for her sick brother. Clara brought her hands to her face, remembering that day. Tears began to stream down her face as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place in her mind. That girl, Marco continued, taught me more about humanity in 5 minutes than I learned in years of corporate meetings. She showed me that true wealth is not in the buildings we build, but in the lives we transform. Sophia opened her notebook to a new page and began to draw the scene unfolding before her. Her quick strokes captured Marco's transformation, the astonishment on the faces of the audience, the tears in her mother's eyes. The New Dreams Foundation is not just another social project, continued Marco, now completely transformed into his true appearance. It is a new way of doing business, where profit is not measured only in money but in smiles, in dreams fulfilled, in transformed lives. Raphael approached with a briefcase, from which Marco took a folder. "Ms. Clara," he called, "could you—" "Come closer, please." Clara, still emotional, stepped forward. Marco opened the folder and began to explain. "This is the complete project for the transformation of the Pink Palace, but I am not the one who will manage it. This responsibility will be yours, Clara, as the Foundation's Director of Social Projects." A murmur of approval ran through the auditorium. Clara stared at the documents in her hands as if she couldn't believe it. "But there's more," Marco continued. "Each resident of the Pink Palace will receive not only a renovated apartment, but also opportunities for education and work. And as for our young doctor," he smiled directly at Sophia, "we have a special scholarship program that guarantees her education all the way to medical school." Sophia jumped from her chair, her notebook falling to the floor and scattering drawings everywhere. Paolo quickly helped to pick it up, but one of the drawings flew onto the stage, landing at Marco's feet. He bent down to pick up the paper, and when he saw the drawing, his smile widened even more. It was an illustration of himself, half dressed as a businessman, half as the man from the diner, with the words, "My guardian angel in disguise," written in childish handwriting. "Sophia," he called, "could you come over here?" The girl walked onto the stage, her braids swaying with every step. When she got close to Marco, she couldn't contain herself. "I knew it. I knew it was you. No one believed me when I said I had a bearded guardian angel, but I knew it." The collective laughter that followed broke any remaining tension in the room. Marco crouched down to Sophia's level and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "In fact, Sophia, it was you who was my guardian angel. You taught me that sometimes we need to disguise ourselves as poor to discover our true wealth." The meeting in the auditorium turned into a true celebration. After the initial revelations, Marco presented the plans for the Pink Palace in detail, but now with one fundamental difference. Every decision would be made together with the community under Clara's leadership. Donna Carla, who was watching, everything with tears in her eyes, approached Marco after the presentation. "So it was you the whole time, drinking that simple coffee in my cafeteria." "And they were the best coffees of my life, Donna Carla," he replied sincerely. "By the way, I have a proposal for you. What do you think about expanding the delicious snack bar? Could we turn it into a coffee school where young people from the community can learn the trade?" The lady's eyes lit up at the possibility. "But Mr. Marco, that would be a dream." "No, Donna Carla," interrupted Sophia, who was still holding Marco. "Dreams are what we haven't achieved yet. This is going to be reality." The wisdom contained in the girl's words made everyone smile. Clara, now more composed after the initial emotion, began to organize the first steps of her new role. With a clipboard in hand, she talked to the residents, writing down suggestions and concerns. "Mom," Sophia called, running over to her with her notebook, "can I show you my drawings for the library project? I made a special space just for medical books." Clara hugged her daughter, amazed at her determination. "Of course you can, my love. Now all your dreams are possible." Marco watched the interaction between mother and daughter with satisfaction. He approached them with Raphael at his side. "Clara, tomorrow we will start with the first changes. The team of architects will want to meet with you to adjust the projects according to the needs of each family." "Mr. Marco," Clara hesitated for a moment, "why did you choose to disguise yourself? You could have done all of this directly, like the businessman that you are." Marco smiled, picking up one of Sophia's drawings that showed her transformation. "You know, Clara, sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves. Living as a homeless person, I discovered a wealth that no financial statement can measure. The wealth of human relationships, of solidarity, of hope." Sophia, who was listening attentively to the conversation, added, "And you also discovered that guardian angels don't need wings, right? Sometimes they just need a good heart and a beard." The hearty laughter that followed was interrupted by Paolo, who came running in with news from the outside area of the auditorium. "Mom, Sophia, you have to see. They've already started setting up the booths for the career fair. In fact, in the schoolyard, a structure was beginning to take shape. It was the Foundation's first practical initiative, a career guidance fair for young people and adults in the community, with job opportunities and professional training courses. And that's not all, Raphael added, consulting his tablet. Starting next week, we will begin renovation work on the Pink Palace, but unlike what usually happens, no one will need to leave during the work. We will do it in stages, ensuring everyone's comfort and safety. Clara looked at her children, at Marco, at the entire community that had gathered there, and felt a different emotion. It was no longer the fear of the future that had accompanied her so much, but a calm certainty that better days were just beginning. Sophia, in turn, opened a new page in her notebook and began to draw. This time it was no longer an abandoned building that took shape under her pencil, but a place full of life, colors, and possibilities. In the center of the drawing, a phrase stood out. When you can, help someone else too, because sometimes angels need our help to perform miracles. The first week after Marco's revelation brought visible changes to the Pink Palace. Colorful scaffolding began to rise up the facade of the building, but it was not simple metal structures. Each floor had a different color, chosen by the residents, themselves in a vote organized by Clara. Sophia, always attentive to every detail, had suggested that each color represent a different dream. The blue on the third floor, where her family lived, represented her dream of becoming a doctor. The green on the ground floor symbolized the future community garden, and so on. "Daughter, are you sure you want to go to school today?" Clara asked, as she prepared breakfast. "There's so much going on here." "Of course I do, Mum," Sophia replied, organizing her books. "Marco said that to be a doctor I need to study a lot, and now that I have those new medical books in the library, I want to make the most of every minute." Clara smiled, proud of her daughter's determination. She herself was preparing for her first official day as the Foundation's Director of Social Projects. Marco had insisted that she have her own office, temporarily set up in a modernly adapted shipping container on the lot next to the building. "Clara," called Donna Zara, rushing into the apartment. "You have to see this. The people from the Foundation are setting up a computer room on the ground floor." In fact, a team coordinated by Raphael was installing computers in one of the building's common areas. The space, which previously served as a rubble deposit, had been completely transformed. "Good morning, Mrs. Clara," Raphael greeted, always formal. "Mr. Marco asked us to ensure that everyone has access to technology during the construction. We will have computer classes for all ages." Paolo, who was watching the installation of the equipment with fascination, tugged on Raphael's sleeve. "Sir, are we going to play a game too?" "Of course it will," Raphael replied with a smile. "But there'll be educational games, including—" He paused dramatically. "There are some really cool ones about the human body that your sister will love." Sophia, who was already on her way to school, came running back when she heard about the medicine games. Her eyes were shining with anticipation. "Really? Can I use it after school?" "Of course you can," a familiar voice replied. It was Marco, who arrived carrying a few more boxes of equipment. Even though he was now wearing impeccable suits, he insisted on personally participating in each step of the transformation. "Sophia, I have a surprise for you," he said, setting the boxes on the floor. "Starting next week, in addition to your regular classes, you'll be taking special science tutoring classes. Dr. Bianca, remember her? She's teaching an introductory anatomy course for kids interested in medicine." The girl could barely contain her joy. She hugged Marco impulsively, not caring about his neat suit. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can I take my sketchbook? I want to draw everything she teaches." "Not only can you, but you should," Marco replied, returning the hug. "Actually, I have an idea. Why don't we turn your drawings into educational posters for the future health area of the building, Clara?" Watched the interaction with tears in her eyes. In just 1 week, so many seemingly impossible dreams were coming true. But it wasn't just her family who were benefiting. On the ground floor, Mr. Jonas, the retiree from the second floor, was already organizing a storytelling group for the children. Mrs. Maria, who always made the best cakes in the community, was in a meeting with consultants from the Foundation to open her own micro-confectionery business. "Clara," Marco called, noticing her emotional look. "We need to talk about your first official assignment as director. How about we start with a project you suggested at the meeting? The community daycare." Clara nodded, wiping away her tears. "Yes, it's a priority. Many mothers can't work because they have no one to leave their children with." "Great," Marco replied. "Raphael has already set aside 3 rooms on the ground floor for this. We just need your vision to transform them into the perfect space." Sophia, who hadn't gone to school yet, pulled her notebook out of her backpack. "Can I help you draw the daycare? I already have some ideas." "Of course you can," Clara replied, hugging her daughter. "Your drawings have the power to turn dreams into reality." And so, amidst computers being installed, walls being painted, and dreams being built, the Pink Palace continued its transformation. It was not just a building being renovated, it was a community rediscovering its own value and potential. The late afternoons at the Pink Palace now had a different routine. After school, the children gathered in the new computer room, where volunteer monitors helped with homework and educational activities. Sophia, as always, stood out for her dedication, especially in the games related to medicine. "Look, Paolo," she exclaimed, showing her brother a 3D simulation of the human body on the computer. "This is the heart, just like the one in the books Marco gave me." Paolo, who had previously been afraid of doctors because of his experience with pneumonia, was now increasingly interested in the field, influenced by his sister's enthusiasm. "When you become a doctor, will you take care of me too?" "I'm going to take care of everyone," Sophia replied with conviction. "And I'm going to teach other children to be doctors too, just like Dr. Bianca is doing with me." In the next room, Clara was coordinating a meeting with future educators from the community daycare center. The project, which had started as a dream, was about to become a reality. Several residents of the building, who previously had no career prospects, were receiving training to work in early childhood education. "The most important thing," Clara explained, "is that each child feels welcomed and safe, as if they were at home. That's why we choose educators from the community itself." Marco, who had been following the development of the projects on a daily basis, entered the room discreetly. Even though he had revealed his true identity, he maintained the humility and simplicity that characterized him during his time under cover. "Clara," he called after the meeting ended, "I have news about the professional training program. The university has accepted our proposal. We will have a distance learning center right here in the building." Clara's eyes lit up. "That means—" "Exactly," Marco added. "You and any other resident who wants to can do a degree without leaving the neighborhood. And what's more, all courses will have full scholarships." The news spread quickly throughout the building. Soon a group of residents gathered on the ground floor, excitedly discussing their study options. Jonas, the retiree, surprised everyone by announcing that he would study education to improve his work with children. Sophia, who had come down to show Marco her new drawings, was especially excited to learn that her mother would be able to study. "Mom, now we're going to study together. I'm learning to be a doctor and you—" "Social worker," Clara added with a smile. "I want to help other communities achieve their dreams, just like what's happening to us." Marco watched the scene with satisfaction when Raphael approached with a folder. "Sir, the architects have finalized the design for the community library. They would like to present it to Sophia, since many of the ideas came from her drawings." "Great," Marco replied. "But first, I want to show everyone something." He opened his briefcase and took out a newspaper. On the front page, a headline caught his attention. "Entrepreneur revolutionizes concept of social responsibility with innovative project." The article told the story of the Pink Palace and its transformation, highlighting how a simple act of kindness had sparked a revolution of hope. "This is not just a newspaper article," Marco said. "It is an invitation for other companies to follow the same path. I have already received calls from several entrepreneurs interested in replicating our model in other communities." Sophia, who was reading the article over Marco's shoulder, pointed to a photo of the building with its colorful scaffolding. "Look, it looks like a rainbow. Did you know that rainbows appear after it rains? It's like what happened here. After so much hardship, now we have color and hope." The wisdom contained in the girl's words made everyone smile. Marco took out his notebook, a habit he had carried over from his undercover days, and wrote, "Lesson of the day. Sometimes we need the rain to see the rainbow, and we need a child to remind us to look up at the sky." The day dawned special in the Pink Palace. It was the official opening of the community library, a space that had been completely transformed following Sophia's designs. The bookshelves, painted in soft shades of blue and green, formed cozy little corners for reading. A special space had been dedicated to medical and science books, with an artistic sign that read, "Corner for Future Doctors." Sophia woke up earlier than usual, barely able to contain her excitement. She had prepared a surprise for the inauguration, a handmade book that she had created herself, documenting the entire transformation of the Pink Palace through her drawings. "Daughter, are you ready?" Clara called, adjusting the new blazer that was now part of her director's wardrobe. "Marco asked us to arrive early. It seems he has a surprise for you." When they arrived at the library, they found not only Marco, but also Dr. Bianca and a team of young medical residents. They were all wearing white lab coats and carrying a mysterious box. "Sophia," Dr. Bianca began, "Marco told us about his book of drawings documenting the transformation of the Pink Palace, so we thought, why not turn this into a bigger project?" The girl's eyes widened as the doctor opened the box, revealing several child-sized white lab coats, each with a name embroidered on them. The first one read Dr. Sophia in delicate blue letters. "This is the beginning of our little doctor's project," Marco explained. "Once a week, you and other children interested in medicine will have hands-on classes with our team, and wearing these lab coats you will learn by doing." Sophia could hardly believe it. Her hands trembled as she touched the white fabric of the lab coat, running her fingers over its embroidered name. Can I put it on now?" "Of course you can," Dr. Bianca replied. "In fact, we want you and Paolo to be our first student tutors. You will help other children overcome their fear of doctors by using art and drawing as a tool." Paolo, who had been watching with wide eyes, was handed his own lab coat, with Dr. Paolo embroidered in green. "Will I be able to help too?" "Of course you will," Sophia replied, hugging her brother. "Remember how afraid you were of doctors. Now you're going to help other children not be afraid anymore." News of the Little Doctors Project spread quickly throughout the building. Soon other children began to show up at the library, curious about the program. Marco watched everything with satisfaction, taking notes in his notebook. "You know, Clara," he said as he watched Sophia animatedly explaining to a group of children how the heart worked, using her drawings as a teaching resource. "Sometimes I wonder who is teaching them more, us teaching them or them teaching us." Clara, who was now combining her work at the foundation with her studies in social work, smiled. "Marco, ever since that day in the cafeteria, Sophia has not stopped teaching. She taught us that kindness begets kindness, that dreams can come true, and that sometimes we need to see the world through the eyes of a child to see the possibilities." The opening of the library turned into a true celebration of knowledge. Donna Carla brought special treats from her snack bar, which now also operated as a literary cafe. Sue Jonas organized a storytelling session, dressed as characters from the books. Late in the afternoon, as the children were taking their first hands-on class with the resident doctors, Sophia asked for a moment to make a special announcement. She climbed up a small ladder, still wearing her white lab coat, and opened her drawing book. "This book tells the story of our building," she began, her voice small but firm. "But it's not just that. It tells the story of how an angel disguised as a beggar taught us that everyone can be an angel to someone, and now each of us has a mission to continue that chain of kindness." Marco, hearing Sophia's words, felt his eyes well up. Discreetly, he took out his notebook and wrote, "Most important lesson. Sometimes we think we are disguised to help others, but in fact, we are discovering ourselves through them." The library in the Pink Palace was not just a space with books. It was a symbol of how dreams can multiply when they find fertile ground in hearts open to transformation. The success of the Little Doctors project quickly spread beyond the walls of the Pink Palace. Within just a few weeks, children from all over the region began to show up, attracted by the possibility of learning about medicine in a fun and accessible way. Sophia and Paolo, in their white lab coats, became true ambassadors for the program. "Today, we're going to learn about the digestive system," Sophia announced, now with even more confidence, holding up a large poster she had drawn herself. "And you know what's even cooler? We're going to do it using fruit from our community garden." The vegetable garden, another project that had flourished, in the Pink Palace, was now an educational space where children learned about nutrition and health in a practical way. Marco had hired an agronomist to oversee the project, but it was the residents themselves who took care of the space. "Sophia is becoming a true health educator," Dr. Bianca told Clara as they watched the young girl excitedly explain vitamins and minerals to her group of young students. "She has a natural gift for teaching." Clara, who had just returned from her first presentation at the social work school, smiled proudly. "She told me yesterday that when she becomes a doctor, she wants to create a program like this in every neighborhood in the city." Marco, who was arriving for his daily visit to the project, heard the comment. "And she's going to make it," he said with conviction. "In fact, I have some news to share with everyone." He gathered the foundation staff, residents and children in the community space on the ground floor. Sophia, still in her lab coat, sat in the front row, her inseparable sketchbook on her lap. "The Little Doctors project has caught the attention of the health department," Marco announced. "They want to implement the program in all public schools, in the city, and guess who they want as a consultant for the project?" All eyes turned to Sophia, who widened her eyes in surprise. "Me? But I'm only 5 years old." "Exactly for that reason," Marco replied with a smile. "Who better to help create a program for children than a child? His drawings, his way of explaining, his way of making other children lose their fear. All of that is unique and special." Clara hugged her daughter, who still seemed to be processing the news. "See, my love, your dreams are inspiring other people to dream too." Paolo, who was standing next to his sister, raised his hand timidly. "What about me? Can I continue helping?" "Of course you can," Dr. Bianca replied. "In fact, we want you to lead a special project on how to help children overcome their fear of hospitals and medical procedures." The meeting turned into a celebration when Marco revealed more news. The New Dreams Foundation was expanding. The Pink Palace model would be replicated in other neighborhoods of the city, always maintaining the principle of transforming lives through education and community leadership. "But there's one condition," Marco said, looking directly at Sophia. "We need to document all of this. And I think we know someone who knows how to tell stories through drawings." Sophia was already opening her notebook to a new page, her eyes shining with the possibilities. "Can I create a book for each new project, with drawings and people's stories like I did here?" "Not only can you, but you should," Marco replied, "because sometimes a story told through the eyes of a child has the power to open the hearts of adults." That night, after everyone had left, Sophia remained in the library, drawing. In her new illustration, the Pink Palace was no longer alone in the landscape. Other colorful buildings began to appear around it, each with its own stories of transformation to tell. "What are you drawing?" asked Clara, who had stayed behind to organize some documents. "The future, Mummy," Sophia replied without taking her eyes off the paper. "Because now I know it can be exactly how we dreamed it would be." It was a special morning in the Pink Palace. The building, now completely renovated, shone in the spring sunshine with its vibrant colors and hanging gardens. On the ground floor, a different exhibition was being set up, "The Power of Small Gestures," a story drawn by Sophia. The exhibition brought together all of Sophia's drawings over the past few months, from the first sketch of the mysterious man in the diner to the most recent designs for the new palaces that were beginning to spring up around the city. Each drawing was accompanied by a story, told from the unique perspective of a child who never stopped believing in miracles. "Sophia, you need to get ready," Clara called, adjusting her daughter's blue dress. "The guests are already arriving for the opening." Special guests included mayors from other cities, business people interested in the project, and, most importantly, representatives of communities dreaming of similar transformations. All had been touched by the story of the Pink Palace and its disguised guardian angel. "Donna Clara," called Mr. Jonas, now the coordinator of the storytelling project that was spreading to several schools in the region. "You have to see this. The children from the theater course have prepared a surprise." On the improvised stage set up in the garden, a group of children performed a play based on the story of the Pink Palace. Little Lucas, Donna Zara's son, played Marco in his disguise, while Maria from the community bakery played the role of Sophia. "When you can, help someone else too," declared Maria Sophia on stage, drawing emotional smiles from the audience. Marco, sitting next to Clara and Sophia, whispered, "Did you know that this phrase has become the Foundation's official motto? It's even engraved on the entrance of all new projects." Sophia smiled, but her eyes were fixed on something beyond the stage. Through the gate of the Pink Palace, she could see the movement of people on the street, people carrying plants for the new community garden, volunteers organizing a health fair, children in white lab coats from the Little Doctors Project explaining hygiene to visitors. "Marco," she called, tugging on the sleeve of his jacket, "can I tell you something?" "Sure, Sophia. What's wrong?" "Remember when you said I taught you about kindness that day at the diner? I guess it wasn't just me. Everyone here taught you something." Marco took out his notebook, now an almost sacred object that documented the entire journey, and asked, "Tell me what each one taught you." Sophia sat up straight in her chair and started counting on her fingers. "Mommy taught us that we can be strong even when we're scared. Paolo taught us that even fears can turn into courage. Donna Carla showed us that a hot coffee can warm the soul. Mr. Jonas proved that stories can build bridges." As Sophia spoke, Marco wrote down every word, realizing how much bigger this project had become than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just about renovating buildings or social programs. It was about recognizing the dignity and potential in every person. The children's performance ended with a song composed especially for the occasion. The lyrics spoke about dreams that grow when they are shared, and about angels who sometimes wear disguises to teach us how to be better. Clara, who now divided her time between running the foundation and attending college, watched everything with teary eyes. On her lap lay the project for her first independent initiative, a training program for single mothers, inspired by her own story. "You know, Sophia," Marco said, closing his notebook after making his last entry, "there's this thing called the butterfly effect. It's when a small action causes big changes in the future. That day at the diner was our butterfly." Sophia thought for a moment and then opened her own notebook, starting a new drawing. In it, a small blue butterfly flew from one colorful building to another, leaving a trail of light wherever it went. "It's not just a butterfly," she explained, putting the finishing touches on her drawing. "It's a chain of kindness. Each person who receives help becomes a new butterfly, bringing hope to other places." The wisdom contained in those words made Marco realize that the true success of the Pink Palace was not in the renovated buildings or the programs implemented. It was in the way each person had become an agent of change, a new butterfly ready to spread hope. Sophia's drawing exhibition attracted much more attention than anyone could have imagined. Journalists from all over the country came to meet the young artist who documented social transformations through her childlike drawings. But what really caught everyone's attention were not just the drawings themselves, but the stories they told. "Sophia," a reporter asked during a special interview, "how do you manage to see so much hope in every situation?" The girl, who was now alternating her white lab coat from the Little Doctors Project with a colorful painter's apron, responded with the simplicity that characterized her. "It's just that I learned to look for angels in disguise. They're everywhere, you know. Sometimes they're people in old clothes. Sometimes they're neighbors who share what little they have. Sometimes they're children teaching other children." Marco, who was watching the interview, realized that Sophia had captured the deeper essence of the entire project. It wasn't about a single person making grand gestures, but about how small acts of kindness could create a chain reaction of transformation. Proof of this was happening at that very moment in different parts of the city. In the neighboring neighborhood, Clara was opening the first support center for single mothers, a space that offered everything from daycare to professional training. The project had been developed based on her own experiences and needs. "My story is not unique," she explained to a group of women. "Each of you has your own struggles, your own dreams. What we need is opportunities and people who believe in us." At Café São Jorge, now transformed into a cultural meeting point, Donna Carla not only served coffee, but also fed dreams. A frame on the wall showed photos of young people who had gotten their first job through the cafe's training program. "Every cup of coffee has a story," she told customers, "and every story has the power to inspire others." Paulo, who had completely overcome his fear of doctors, now led a support group for children undergoing medical treatment. Using his sister's drawings and his own experiences, he showed that fear and courage could go hand in hand. "Do you know what my sister always says?" he would tell the children. "That anyone can be a doctor of someone else's heart, even without wearing a lab coat." At the end of that special afternoon, after the last interview, Sophia asked to make an announcement. She went up onto the small stage set up in the garden of the Pink Palace, carrying her inseparable sketchbook. "I wanted to show you my latest drawing," she said, opening the sketchbook. "It's a gift to everyone who helped our dreams come true." The drawing showed an entire city seen from above. Each building had its own colors and stories, connected by bright lines that seemed to weave a great web of light. In the center, the Pink Palace stood out, not because it was the largest or the most beautiful, but because it was the point from which all the lights began. "This is the map of kindness," Sophia explained. "Each light is someone who has received help and decided to help others too. It's like a giant family of angels in disguise." Marco, who had come closer to get a better look at the drawing, felt something warm run down his face. They were tears, but not tears of sadness. They were tears of someone who saw a small gesture of kindness turn into a movement capable of changing lives. "Sophia," he called, his voice thick with emotion, "you taught me that sometimes we have to lose ourselves in order to find ourselves. But you also taught me something even more important." "What?" she asked curiously. "That when we help someone, we are not just transforming a life, we are creating new wings so that others can fly too." Sophia smiled, picking up her pencil to add one last detail to the drawing. Small blue butterflies flying. From building to building, each carrying a light of its own, each spreading more hope along the way. It was a special afternoon at the deli. Exactly 1 year had passed since that first meeting between Sophia and Marco. To celebrate the date, Donna Carla had organized a small ceremony, bringing together all the main characters of this extraordinary story. The walls of the diner, once plain and worn, now displayed a gallery of memories, photos, Sophia's drawings, newspaper clippings, and most prominently, that first letter she had written to the guy from the diner. The establishment had become a living symbol of how small gestures could trigger great transformations. "There's something different here today," observed Sophia, now wearing a blue dress that matched her little doctor's project lab coat, neatly folded on a chair. "It feels like we've gone back in time, but everything is better." Marco smiled, also noticing the parallels. He had chosen to wear simple clothes for the occasion, reminiscent of his disguise, but now not as a mask, but as a tribute to those days that had changed his life. "Sophia," he called, "remember what I told you that first day?" "Sure," she replied promptly. "When you can, help someone else too." "Exactly, and do. You know how many people have been helped since then?" Sophia picked up her notebook. There were now several volumes, all carefully preserved, and began to leaf through the pages. "Let me see. There's the entire Pink Palace, then the other buildings that the foundation renovated. The children from the Little Doctors Project, the mothers from Mommy's Project." Clara, who was watching her daughter do her calculations, intervened proudly. "More than 1,000 families have directly benefited, Sophia. And that's without counting the people who were inspired to create their own aid projects." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. An elderly lady, leaning on a cane, timidly entered the diner. Her eyes scanned the room until they found Marco. "I saw your story in the paper," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "And I had to come here and tell you something. Many years ago, when I was young and struggling, a stranger helped me at a diner, much like this one. He bought a meal for me and my sick son, and he said the exact same thing. When you can, help someone else too." Silence filled the room as the lady continued. "Since that day, I promised that I would help other people whenever I could. And I have done so throughout my life. When I read about you and this girl, I realized that I was not alone in this chain of kindness." Sophia, who had immediately grabbed her notebook, began to draw the scene. But this time, she did something different. Instead of drawing just the present moment, she created a series of interconnected frames showing how acts of kindness were connected through time. "See?" she exclaimed, showing her drawing. "It's like a family. Each person who helps becomes a parent to new helpers." Marco took out his own notebook, the same one that had accompanied him since his days undercover, and made a special note. "Kindness has no end. It just transforms and finds new ways to touch more hearts." At that moment, Clara caught everyone's attention. "I have an announcement to make. The New Dreams Foundation has just approved a very special project. We are going to transform the story of the Pink Palace into a children's book, with Sophia's drawings and stories of all the people who have been touched by this chain of kindness." Sophia's eyes lit up. "And can I help you do it?" "Actually," Marco replied, "we wanted you to be the main author. Your drawings and your way of seeing the world are the heart of this story." The girl was silent for a moment, a thoughtful expression on her face. Then she picked up her pencil and began to write something on the first page of her new notebook. "What are you writing?" Paolo asked curiously. Sophia showed the page where she had written in her childish handwriting, "To all the angels in disguise in the world. Sometimes they wear old clothes, sometimes white coats, sometimes just a smile. But they all have one thing in common. They know that helping someone is the best disguise for happiness." Donna Carla, who listened to everything while preparing her famous coffee, smiled through her tears. "You know what, this cafe has seen many stories, but I never imagined that it would be the beginning of such a special one." "It's not the beginning," Sophia corrected, completing her drawing with, "One last blue butterfly. Here's just another ring in a chain that never ends. Because every time someone helps someone else, a new ring forms." The launch of the book, The Angel in Disguise, The Story of the Pink Palace, took place on a sunny Sunday morning in the community garden that was now blooming, where there had once been only abandoned concrete. The space was decorated with giant reproductions of Sophia's drawings, each one telling a part of this extraordinary journey. Children of all ages, many wearing white lab coats from the Little Doctors Project, ran among the guests, handing out bookmarks with the now famous phrase, "When you can, help someone else too." Each bookmark had a different drawing of Sophia, representing the many forms that kindness can take. Clara, now a graduate in social work and coordinating several projects for the foundation, watched proudly as Sophia prepared for her first autograph session. The girl had insisted on drawing something special for each person who came to get her signature. "Daughter," Clara called, adjusting the bow on Sophia's dress. "Are you nervous?" "No, Mommy," she replied with a serene smile. "I'm just thinking about how many new angels will be born after they read our story." Marco, who was carrying a mysterious box, heard the comment. "You know, Sophia, you made me realize something very important. Sometimes we disguise ourselves to help others, but in the end, it is they who help us discover who we really are." Opening the box, he revealed a surprise, an adult-sized white lab coat with the name Dr. Marco embroidered on it, just like the ones worn by the children in the project. "I've decided to go back to school. I'm going to study medicine, too." Sophia's eyes widened with joy. "Really? So we're going to be colleagues?" "Yes," he replied, putting on his lab coat. "Because you taught me that there is no age limit to making dreams come true, nor is there a limit to how much we can help." The launch ceremony began with a special presentation. All the children of the Little Doctors Project, led by Sophia and Paolo, told the story of the Pink Palace through a musical piece. Each child represented a part of the transformation, from the first meeting in the cafeteria to the new projects that continued to emerge. When the time came for Sophia to sign the first book, everyone was surprised by her request. "I want the first one to be for the Delicia Cafe, to stay there, reminding everyone that miracles can start with a simple coffee." Donna Carla, excited, received the book with trembling hands. On the first page, Sophia had drawn the diner transformed into a magical portal from which blue butterflies, carrying dreams on their wings, emerged. One by one, the guests approached to receive their copies. Each person had a story to tell about how they had been touched by this chain of kindness. Business people who had changed their corporate practices, children who had started social projects in their schools, families who had learned to share, even when they had little. Late in the afternoon, as the sun began to set, Sophia asked for a moment of attention. She climbed onto a small makeshift stage, her sketchbook in one hand and the microphone in the other. "Did you know that everyone has a guardian angel disguised inside them?" she began. "Sometimes we don't even realize it, but it's there, waiting for a chance to help someone. My angel found Marco's angel in that diner, and look how many other angels were born after that." Opening his notebook to the last page, he showed his most recent drawing, a large heart made of small blue butterflies, each carrying a different dream. "This book is not the end of our story," she continued. "It is just the beginning of many more, because every person who reads it will discover their own guardian angel in disguise and will want to help someone else. And so it will go on, forever and ever." Marco, who had kept his old notebook from his disguised days, wrote a final entry. "The real miracle was not disguising myself as a beggar to help others. It was meeting a girl who taught me that true wealth lies in multiplying hope." And so, as the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and blue, the Pink Palace shone like a beacon of hope in the city. Its colorful walls told not only the story of a physical transformation, but of how small acts of kindness could create ripples of change that spanned generations. Sophia, watching the people still queuing to receive their books, smiled as she realized that her story was just beginning, because each new reader would be a new butterfly, ready to spread more light throughout the world.